For those on the recording, good morning, everybody. My name is Jo Lang. I am hosting the member comment period this morning. Welcome to the Opalco August board meeting. It's good to see you again after a brief hiatus in July. As a reminder, we record these meetings and they are posted to our website. Members are invited to ask questions or share comments during this first part of the meeting, and we will have some time at the end of the meeting as well for any follow-up questions. Before we get to that, there are a few reminders. Please keep yourself muted unless you're speaking. If you're going to ask a question or make a comment, you can do so by typing it into the chat feature, either the full question or just the topic that you're looking to speak about, or you can click the raise hand button and we'll put you into a queue and call on you to unmute when your turn comes up. And you will have up to 5 minutes to make a comment. The materials for today's meeting are posted in our document library at opalco.com, and they're posted each month in the week preceding a board meeting. I'll do a couple of quick updates from the communications team for this month. It has been a busy but really great summer so far. In July, we took 5 students and 1 returning student director from the San Juan County Schools to the Youth Rally Camp in Idaho. This camp is put on every year by the Idaho Consumer-Owned Utilities Association, and there are students representing electric co-ops from Washington, Oregon, Nevada, Idaho, Utah, and Alaska. So it's a pretty packed event with lots of students from lots of different places. The students throughout the week take a diverse mix of classes with focuses on leadership, government and policy, electric cooperatives, mental health, and lots more. This year's students were recognized for their outstanding achievements and leadership skills, and 4 of our students were awarded additional scholarship dollars from the ICUA. We're really, really proud of what they did this year, and we're excited to keep this program going in the future as well. Stay tuned for a recap of the week in September's Ruralite magazine. And then Opalco is also going to be hosting a series of in-person renewable energy community meetings. This is going to be the week of September 15th. We're looking forward to hearing what co-op members want for our shared energy future as it relates to renewable energy solutions. There's going to be a meeting on San Juan, Orcas, and Lopez Islands. The San Juan meeting will be on Monday, September 15th at 4:00 p.m. at the Grange. The Orcas meeting will be Tuesday, September 16th at 4:00 p.m. in the Orcas Center Madrona Room, and the Lopez meeting will be Wednesday, September 17th at 4:00 p.m. at the Lopez Island Library. All of these details will be posted to the events page on our website for your reference, and we do hope to see you there. At this time, I'll open up the member comment period. Still doesn't look like we have any members in the meeting. But if there are members who'd like to make a comment, you can do so now by pasting into the chat or using the raise hand feature. Am I still seeing correctly that there are no members in the meeting? Okay. All right, so at this time, we'll move into the regular session. And if we get members throughout the meeting with questions, we can follow up at the end of the meeting. Thank you so much, everybody, and I'll hand it over to Vince.
Great. Jo, thank you so much. Okay, good morning, everyone. We'll call to order the meeting today, August 2025. Start off with our consent agenda. I would be looking for a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda.
So moved.
It's Mark. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Hearing none, the consent agenda items are approved. Next, Foster, I want to move the December board meeting.
Yes, the December meeting, what we do is we're always on the 3rd Thursday as our target date for our board meetings. Gets a little close for the holidays, and moving it up 1 week is the thought to allow a little bit more schedule flexibility. And so staff is proposing to move the meeting from the 18th of December to the 11th, same time, both on Thursdays, but in the same time at 8:30. And with that, I think I need to get a formal motion going. So why don't we approve it formally, Vince, if you're okay with that? But staff recommends the board make a motion to approve the December meeting date to the 11th.
So I believe, Brian, you made that. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mark's got that. All in favor?
Fine.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? I hear none. Okay, we'll move that to December 11th.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much. The next topic we have is public electric vehicle charging.
Mhm.
Pretty exciting here on Orcas. The Port of Orcas is installed a level 3 charger, and we're working through the details of the specifics on how to adjust our policy. We have a non-resale electric energy policy that needs to be adjusted, and this is our second read for a policy that allows charging by others resale of electricity. We're working pretty well with a vendor. We don't have all the details worked out, so I have a feeling this one's going to come back before us at a later date. But that's okay too. But what we're proposing is to carve out members a little differently than members of the public or people that may be visiting our island on vacation and our islands on vacation and so forth. So we have kind of a tier 2 pricing scenario where our Palco members would receive one pricing structure and then anyone else would be receiving a different. The thought is to make sure that our cost of service metrics are done and met. And working through those details, what we do is, remember, we have a level 3, which is a pretty large charger, and it's based on a commercial account. And commercial accounts have demand associated with them. So it's not as easy as just looking at a kilowatt hour charge that we have. It's a matter of working together with the service provider here in the Port of Orcas to come up with a fee that really covers his cost. And we're still kind of working through that. But with that, we've come up with a pretty good solution, we think, and we think the vendors can work with us pretty much with a tier 2 price, or with 2 separate tier pricing schedule. You can see in yellow the areas that we are proposing to change. You can kind of go down all the real yellows down a little bit, Krista. Right there. And again, this is our second read and probably coming back a little bit. What we're proposing is to pick our resale rate would be posed on our tariff plus an adder. If you kind of see the first bullet point under the proposed changes for the tariff plus a 2% adder, I think that's going to be a little bit under. And I think looking through some of the usage profiles of the level 3 charger and how it all fits together, we'll probably be raising that number up. But I don't know exactly what those numbers are yet. But we wanted to make sure that we had a policy in place. So if we have other interested members that want to do this, and I think we do have a couple that are out there on different islands, and having a policy for everybody to follow is really our goal. So with that, staff recommends that the board make a motion to approve our adjustments to our policy for policy number 4 for electric charging as highlighted in yellow. Wendy?
Can I just ask a question about that, which is this cost, this adder cost, going to be determined by the port here on Orcas for their level 3 charger? Is that same charge going to apply to any other level 3 charger on any other island? Or will each individual member setting their own thing up be able to add a different resale tariff, where you have that placeholder 2 cents per kilowatt hour?
Yeah, our goal is to have one size so everyone is treated the same. But what we don't know, Wendy, is when you convert something from a demand charge and then try to figure out what that would be on a charging basis, because it's only going to be on a kilowatt hour charge basis. So that's where we're going to make a fluctuation. But it's really important for us to treat everybody the same as required under our cost of service metrics.
Well, I still got a question too. Is this legal? Could a gas station charge locals less than they charge tourists for gasoline?
I'll leave that up to Joel.
I think you have to look, the way I've looked at it, Vince, is that you look at each rate block, each tariff as it applies to, so in this case, it's really we say member, but it's commercial member. And as long as we apply it the same across every customer class, then I think we're fair. And the only discrimination, if there is any, is between the members and the public, and members pay more to us. So this should be okay. I really don't see an issue of discrimination here, but
Got it. Could you
scroll back up just quickly? Maybe a little bit further, I think. So this kicks in only for payment-enabled electrical vehicle chargers. So this doesn't happen if somebody wants to put in a charger and just let people use it.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So what Bruce Benton did, really big high marks for
Right.
that. We got a great grant. And this is a little different. This is all part of that same thing, a little bit differently. So what he got is I forget how many chargers he's got out there. Krista probably knows, probably close to 30. That he was trying to put a charger in front of a business. The business would cover the electrical charges because they
Right.
benefit from the people parking out front and visiting their operations and so forth.
Right.
But that's free charging. This one was very unique because it was a level 3 and they're really expensive, and he has to a little bit of money that goes along with that.
Wendy?
Yeah, and just a question, because you're showing that 2 cents right now. And I'm a little concerned about putting something that low in it and giving people that idea. And I'm saying that because we have some friends who live in apartment complexes in Bellingham. And the absolute lowest charge, which is supposed to be a pass-through of the level 3 charger, is 20 cents per kilowatt hour in those buildings. And then if you go to a level 3 charger, at Whole Foods or all of these other ones, the price gets up closer to 40 cents a kilowatt hour. So I'm just concerned if we start with a placeholder in our text of 2 cents, and then the reality ends up being higher than that, we're kind of getting ourselves in a weird little box.
Thanks for the observation. The thought is really interesting. If you have an electric vehicle and you're a member, it's probably not going to be in your financial best interest to go charge there, right? Because you don't have a demand charge at your residence.
Right.
So you're probably not going to be apt to go there and charge anything. What you're saying on the public charging is absolutely right. It's probably closer to 40 to 50 cents.
Right.
To be charging. And I think that that's still going to apply when they, open that up for public consumption. It's probably going to be at that higher rate. We're only talking about the members getting preference if they're choosing to use that charger. I don't know how much it's going to go up, but it's still going to go nowhere near 40 or 50.
It's
No,
not
but I was
Puget
just
Sound
thinking if we
Energy
put
here.
something like 10 as a round number as a placeholder, and we're about to publish this, we're not going to create any sort of upheaval when the actual amount calculated by the port is something a little higher, closer to 8 to 12. Something.
I don't know. We have a really good rapport, and it's been really fun actually working with the port and getting a little bit of flexibility. They know where we stand. They know that we're going to make an adjustment. If we want to start higher, we have no problem doing that. It just seemed really arbitrary to me until I get better figures, organized to recommend something for the board.
Yeah, no, I was just coming up with that as an EV driver parking at these apartment complexes. And then I talked to a friend of mine over in Bellingham who's visiting us right now last night about this, because I had seen this in the pre-read, and asked him because he has a Tesla and a Volkswagen EV. And so, that's all he has are EVs, and this whole charging thing and preferentially charging them, at the location where he lives at 20 cents. Which is supposed to be the pass through. And then he has friends in other places, and that seems to be kind of around the going rate.
And,
Yeah, I
and
think
I'm not surprised in Puget Sound Energy that it could be 30, 40 cents.
Yeah, I think that most of the public charging, they're able to charge whatever they want, and they're going as high as 50%.
Right. It's just that you can see the ones that are doing the same thing we're trying to say is that we're passing the actual cost of the level 3 charger to our members on top of our own energy charge. And so I'm just trying to say that there's sort of a calculation that's been done on the mainland in some places, and it's closer to 20 cents a kilowatt hour when they add in the cost, distribute the cost of installing the level 3 charger. That doesn't need to go anywhere. I just was concerned that when we were showing 2 cents, we were maybe putting something too low in there. If that's going to be in our text.
Yeah, Brian, you had a thought there too. By the way, I love Brian's. Whoever has an EV, speak up.
Yeah, I was just, so, I mean, so if you add the 2 cents plus, it'd be about 15, but I'm not surprised that Puget Sound Energy area is 30 to 40 cents.
Yeah, you know what's really hard for us, and by the way, we could set it at a higher rate. That's not a problem whatsoever. What was going to be a challenging is to track the charging occurrences, right? Because they're gonna, if you have one car fill up, then their demand charge is going to be very different than if you have a bunch of cars fill up, because that one demand signal is only going to be applied to one charge. But if they have 30 charges, then the math changes pretty dramatically. And that's where we need to really look at some data once it filters in about how they use their charger to estimate that a little bit better. And maybe we may ever come up with a different mousetrap too. We're working with a vendor and look at a different cost metric to kind of look
There'll
at it.
have,
Maybe we
have
do
to
it.
be some for a way for a local person, someone who's a member to actually, when they do this, to say, I'm a Palco customer, so I get the lower rate.
And then we got to work through those details too. And those are going to be so far so good. What the vendor would do is have a list of all of our member numbers, and then if you put in your member number into the charging system, that it would know that you're active, and we would keep that regularly updated. So it seems
I think
like
that,
it's going to work pretty well. If you guys want to increase the number, 2 is just as arbitrary as 10 is just as arbitrary as 20 at this stage.
right. Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Do you want to, let's see, I'll leave it up to you guys if you want to make a motion to adjust it to a higher level as Wendy projects, or at least as stated, or to leave it at 2% for now, and we'll come back at a later date.
Any ideas?
I don't think it's going to cause an uproar when you, if not, I think we can navigate through it.
So just to clarify, Foster, I want to separate this from reselling. It's like running an extension cord out of my house and giving the apartment next door free stuff. This is strictly related to the EV chargers.
Yeah, and this one in particular, I guess it wouldn't really matter whether you're a level 2. It's really about, do you have a meter that's out there, and we're going to be charging them whatever that meter process. This would allow them to recoup some of those costs.
And I'm assuming we're not going to try to monitor this. This is up to the person to determine who's a member and non-member.
That's correct.
So if I have one of these, do I have to call Apalco and say, is this guy a member or not? I mean, how are they going to do this?
The way that we're proposing it right now is to have all the member numbers uploaded onto the vendor, and then if your member number shows up as a preferred, then you get the member pricing as opposed to the public price.
But are they going to do these things via credit card or something? Or?
I can answer that question.
Yeah, sure, Wendy.
Yeah, because since I have an EV and have these apps, and I talked to Chip, I actually ran into Chip and he talked to me about this for a long time, a couple of weeks ago. So there's an app they're planning to use, and I should remember the name of the app, but it's the one that was built by Shell Energy. Shell, the oil company, actually has an app for this because they sell power as well. And so when you load the app on your phone, then there's a place where you put your Opalco member number that identifies you as an Opalco member. So then when you're getting ready to go and charge and you use your app in order to pay, it automatically recognizes that you're an Opalco member. And that's the way that they were planning to do it. And they would also have uploaded, like Foster was saying, the database of Opalco numbers, so somebody couldn't just randomly put in a number that didn't match.
So a hotel can have a thing, say the hotel Wi-Fi is this, and the Opalco member number to use for the chargers is this.
Exactly. And then you have your credit card is in your app. So the payment's all just done like any other charger. I mean, this is a commercial charging that's already used around the country. So it just loads it up that way. And I've actually seen that in reality down at Apple's headquarters in California. Because if you're an employee, your charging is free. But if you're not an employee, you have to pay. And when I've been driving my daughter's car, I've had to pay.
No, I'm just saying this is how a hotel can give it away free by just saying, well, here, use our Opalco number. And it's defeated the purpose.
Yeah, I think when you actually go through, I don't know, the learning curve, Vince, we can put that language in the policy that says thou shalt not use your number, or whatever. It's really for Opalco members only.
And it using the actual member, this is a technical detail, but you know, I'm a nerd. So using the actual member number doesn't offer you any means of validation because our member numbers are right. Unlike a credit card where you could actually run a CRC check and see if it's a valid
Right.
Visa number, right? My member number is, you know, it's essentially a 7-digit sequential number, right? I can pick a 7-digit sequential number and use an Opalco member's number,
Right.
right? So we might want to issue people a charging number. I know that sounds like I just gave you an IT project, but
I think we got plenty of IT projects with this event anyway, and I think that's why I just want to make sure that there's a placeholder.
Yeah, that's fine. I would just, you know, keep that detail in mind. You might not want to actually use the member number. So
Thanks, Fit. I mean,
Yeah.
thanks.
sure.
I guess maybe my old age memory is showing up. It's like, why do we care if they wanted to charge 70 cents or something? Why can't they do that?
What we, you know what, there's a history that goes along with it. So when we first started electric chargers, we had a vendor come in, and I think it was more expensive to charge, you know, on the electric charger that the third party vendor was having than gasoline.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the members really came unglued about that, of trying to like, wait a minute, that doesn't even make sense. And I like the idea of making sure that we're out there protecting our members, and that if they want to fill up and so forth, they can. In the future, I think that there's going to be a big incentive for Opalco members to sign or whatever to fill up during when the, you know, sunny hours, and that's not necessarily going to be when they're at home. So I like the concept of having the ability for a member to come in and get a preferential, you know, rate treatment. I don't think most people are going to do it for the, you know, obviously, because you're going to be charged a commercial adder on it. But I think that it's going to be interesting to kind of navigate through this process, Vince. If you wanted to charge a lot, I think we would see a little bit of pushback. I like the idea of having a little member preference. You know, we got the infrastructure that's in there, and the members, you know, we represent them.
But I want to separate this out of any complexity that might have gone along with a grant to do this stuff. I own a hotel. I spend X $100,000 to put in a level 3 charger in my parking lot, and I can only charge 15 cents for it. And I have to give it 13 cents for members.
I
just
don't think
questioning
that's
the
what this
logic
says,
here.
right?
No, I think you have two tier prices. The members get one that we set, and then it's up to them what they charge others.
Yeah, we're not constraining what they charge non-members. They can charge market rates, right? Like,
And that,
right? Am I interpreting that correctly?
you're correct.
So this is a classic cooperative member benefit.
I got it.
Right? It's like going to the food co-op and the non-member has to pay a different price.
Okay, understood.
Yeah.
And I think
that clarifies it.
the issues you're raising, Vince, are really on the enforcement side.
Mhm.
So how, you know, it's one thing to have the policy and the rates. It's just a question of, you know, is there an issue of enforcement? Are people, you know, kind of going through the back door on some of this? And that's a real possibility. So, you know, it's like a lot of co-op programs, you know.
Right. I mean, you know, there could be signals in the data that would tell, like if a hypothetical hotel owner was giving people their member number and saying to all the tourists, use my number and you'll get the cheaper price, right? We're gonna see a pattern of people charging during tourist months in greater numbers than our population supports.
Right.
So you'll be able to see it.
Okay.
So
All
anyway,
right. Got it.
we may have to come back and put something in the policy at some point about removing the right to resale if it's abused by the member.
Got it.
I think that's a good point, Mark. Those are all the things that will work out once we kind of get experience with it.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on this item?
With that, staff makes a recommendation that the board make a motion to approve policy 4 as revised in yellow.
Okay. I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Mark, is there a second?
Second.
Jerry, was that you or?
Yes.
Okay, Jerry, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Hearing none, that passes. All right, Foster, thank you for that. We'll see how that works.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one to go through. I look forward to it, actually. It's going to be fun for us to work with that group.
All right, cost of service and rates update.
So we've come to the conclusion of our rate study, and we wanted to formalize it. So this is really just a matter of looking at our kind of the rates that we're looking at. Remember, we have two different things going on. We had a cost of service study that really balances between the different rate classes, commercial versus residential. We know that commercial is basically paying a little bit too high, and we have to make that adjustment. That's very different than the rate structure itself. So we got two things going on, and I hope I don't convolute them a little bit. Russell's got a good little screen to just talk through, and I think we all know where this is kind of going to. We're pretty excited about it. But let me go through just the basic stuff that we've all agreed on. And the first thing is break out the service access charge, where before we had one large service access charge all commingled together. And I think there's a lot of transparency of individually listing line crew maintenance, grid infrastructure, business administrative, and member services. You can kind of see the breakout. So we would take those percentages, times them by the existing service access charge, and revise our bill print accordingly. Now that's a little bit differently over the cost of service alignment. So this is where we adjust the different rate structures to make sure everyone pays their proverbial fair share. And we know that we're going to be doing it over a phased manner within a 6-year period. And we chose six years because it's really a residential driver. We want to avoid some rate shock. And so if we incorporate and phase it in over a 6-year period, we knew that residential needs to increase, for instance, over a 6% period. So doing a 1% increase will avoid that rate shock that would go along with it. So when we do that, you can kind of see that the residential rate would go up by the 1%. Commercial rates every year would decrease by about the 5% level if you're large, 3% if you're small. So the cost alignments are going to just take place over that phase period. The service charge reduction for volumetric, you can kind of see what the volumetric charges are going to be in terms of what they're a little bit lower. The current revenue mix is 25% or 27% service access versus energy charges. So you can kind of see where we're going to be adjusting the target over time too. You can kind of see the 39% versus the 61% energy charge. The ECA is going to be tied to the net operating margin to make sure that we can accomplish and pay for our capital investments that we're putting on the horizon. And then we have a placeholder in here for the large residential services. I know that it was supported by the members. We could probably do it via a demand charge, but the thought of the group was been make sure that we have the metering infrastructure to accomplish that, which we need to probably get about a year's worth of data once we get that metering infrastructure in play. So the thought was to set up a 40 amp service, which is larger than a 200 amp service, is like double, charge them an extra $10 a month as a placeholder. If you have something that's 600 amp meter base or larger, it would be an additional $20 a month. And then we'll revise that once demand rates are kind of gauged, and we have a really good understanding of the demand side of it, and have a 12-month history to adjust accordingly. Any questions? I kind of summarized what we've done over from January all the way through today.
Can I just ask a question about the 400 and 600 amp services? Because I thought I recalled when we were talking about those services, originally we were talking about the increased cost of the grid infrastructure for putting in those larger services as opposed to their actual demand. So I just was hoping someone could comment on that.
Yeah, when the once you put in your new service, you're paying for those original costs. And so what E3 looked at and determined was the majority of those are costs. So it's not as high as you would think. You know, originally I think that we were thinking those were going to be a lot higher, but they pay for the additional size transformer, any wiring that goes to their home that they pay for. But all those replacement costs in future years would be something that we would have to actually pay for as a membership. And that's why the $10 and the $20 fee accordingly was estimated. Does that answer your question?
So that's the fee was based on that future replacement cost. It wasn't based on the power demand at those residences then.
Can I?
Yeah, it was really interesting. Demand would actually be a good way to approximate those charges as well. Russell, if you want to.
So demand is used, at least from a rate mechanism on distribution utilities, to do various things. One could be to offset the cost of the power cost that we get as a full utility. The other is recuperation of the variable portions of the system that are related to how large the services are. And in our system, since we don't have a large disparity in our timing of demand or timing of our power rates, it really just doesn't shift that much from our peak to our non-peak times. All we're really doing, and all we would look to be doing with a demand rate, is to supplement the infrastructure needed to get to you, so all those costs flow directly to you instead of doing it through KWH, where sometimes those costs don't go directly to you for what you use. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks, Rick.
Thanks.
I got a question, actually, a follow-up question. What percentage do we currently have of those higher meters just across?
I don't. Well, Russell, I'm sure you have them not very many, by the way, Shooks. There's we've been tracking them, but it's not a substantial number.
It's in the hundreds in the residential realm.
Overwhelmingly, we're all.
I'll look it up real quick though.
Thanks.
Okay, and mostly residential.
Yeah.
Got it.
So that's hundreds out of like 14,000 or something, or
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
And,
it's,
and when we looked at the data at what, we had the data of the during the high peak one from a couple of years ago, and there was just about 50 to 100 who were really at the extend.
At the time of I don't know, time of analysis, when we transmitted the data to E3, it was 279 in that first category, 400 amp services, and 44 in the greater than 400 amp services.
And make sure I answer Shook's question right. This is for large residential services. The commercial side is covered because we do charge them the demand side.
right. And
Right.
a lot of them are 400 amp services for larger businesses. So we're talking about a couple % of our residential members here. Maybe.
Right.
This is not that noteworthy in terms of revenue.
Right.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, do you also track usage? Does it match the size?
Well, it's not always about usage, it's the demand, and unfortunately we don't have that data to be able to correlate the two as of yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's a reasonable placeholder for us to have it in here until we get more clarity once the demand meters are in place.
Yeah, that's roughly 2.7% of our residential services.
So are these numbers, these 10 and 20, are they arbitrary or are they actually tied to some demonstrable cost that the cooperative incurs?
They're not tied to anything. They're more approximation, Vince. It's a little looser than not. I don't know how arbitrary that they are, but we were looking at future cost replacements for some of the metering infrastructure and transformers and so forth. So not quite arbitrary, but a little less definitive than you would like.
Yeah, I just want to say that the work and the money that we spent in the last year to look at the cost of service and the rates, I think was very helpful for us. I think it moves us 40 years ahead of what we were for a very long time. So I think this is great. And we know there are things that we'll need to do, especially when we get the better metering capability. But I think this is excellent. I think we did a great job.
Yeah, I do too. It was really nice to get everybody on the board with what we're trying to do. And in the future, remember, we're going to have time of use, time of generation. We're going to have a whole bunch of different influences. So this is a really good first step.
What is the next step, Foster?
Really, it's going to be dependent upon the meters that we put in play. And we're getting excited about it. Do you want to give any updates about deployment of new meters, Russell, and what you're investigating?
Sure. We so of course, when we found out we had unreliable data to be able to deal with, there was some down to the meter programming. So we had to, and since it's power line carrier, we have to rely on an extremely low data rate to reprogram meters out there. So did those fixes. That took several months, unfortunately, to first find the fix and then push it out to all of our meters. We've been in testing for that. We've now got data into our test billing modules. And so we're within months of potentially starting to gather that data. And so 12 months of experience will get us at least what we can do for a year-over-year rate case. Unfortunately, we don't also have that history, so we don't know exactly how weather influences these things, but it's more usage profiles. Weather will influence more of the usage of the energy, the long-term usage of these things, but weather profiles do a lot. Usage profiles do. So if there's a person that's working all the time or working a standard job, gets home and they cut on a lot of stuff, that's where they're going to see that demand there, at least in analyzing my own. That's where I'm going to see that demand cost and can affect my outcome if I even can. So I would anticipate maybe having by the 2027 budget cycle, so that'd be October 26, having enough data to at least put something to see how demand would affect our residential, and then understand how we want to shift costs. So we do have the metrics, all the metrics from E3 to be able to do so at the time, but it's it's going to be a little bit of a social decision, a little bit of a financial decision.
In terms of the vendors and the metering type, jury's still out a little bit there. I know that we currently run our meters through a lot of the power line carrier, if you remember. Those have actually gotten a little bit better. So we're looking at some of the alternatives. I think we're always going to have meters being read over power lines because there's going to be certain areas that we just can't get to. The thing that surprises me, I haven't seen a real fiber, meter that's out there that really connects all the way through, and that's a little bit more surprising. That last little connection is where it seems to be not fiber, and they always run some kind of a wireless thing that gets a little bit more unreliable than not. So I'm kind of curious to see if technology advancements, while we're playing around with the internal side of it, whether the manufacturers get better and come up with a better option for us as well.
Right. Yeah, I've always been curious. I mean, we talk about fiber connected meters, but how does that actually play out in my fiber? Where are you going to connect up in my network at home? And what will you control and what will I control?
The best design we've seen, there's a group out of Tennessee that does, they have a fiber portion to their utility, and they also do fiber to it. Mm-hmm. The difference out here is they do fiber to the home. They do power. Their metering is usually bolted to the side of their house. So the easy connection is you bring 4 pair in, 2 pair for metering, 2 pair for your home connection. Out here, like, and I pick on my house, that's a couple 100 feet away. So now my fiber needs to be intercepted since it's already in, and
Right.
swung into my my meter facilities, spliced off. You know, the costs start increasing, and mostly entrenching and getting that infrastructure in. And then there's still, once you get fiber, we still have to pull the meter without breaking that fiber. So that's the wireless connection, and they tend to use a secure Bluetooth. Or and that can get up to 25 feet. So if you have meter packs like in apartments, they can collect, one fiber connection can collect the data for, I forgot how many meters. It's something in the 25 to 30 meters.
Yeah, but as you say, a lot of us are much further than that distance. So
right. And then as Foster says, I mean, we already struggle with some of these connection. Powerline carrier, it's just if you have power, we have connection. It's
sure.
When it comes to LTE and certain wireless things, it becomes a little dicey. I worked with a group that does RF. The standard radio frequency is maybe 900 megahertz is the frequency set, and the problem is they do hopping or they do direct connection to the repeaters. So you have a failure point in your repeater. If it does hopping, they don't do a great job of making sure that it does the fastest connection or the quickest, the least hops connection.
Right.
Sometimes those meters just decide to do what they want to do. They'll grab that first signal instead of the best signal.
Right. Sure.
So it's major work in progress in the metering communication side of it.
Yeah, Tom, thanks for your comments on the fiber meter. I mean, we've always had meters in our areas because people had faraway homes and they like their privacy. So having the meters at the end of the driveway has always worked really well. Now there's going to be a little bit different going forward. But I think once we can, put that in a policy going forward, I think we'll start migrating whatever that percentage is over to a longer term solution. So stay tuned on that. But anyway, going back to the cost of service rates, I'd love to get a motion from the board to approve the cost of service and rates update as outlined before you.
So moved.
Vince, you're on mute there.
Sorry, was that Brian?
That was Brian. Yeah.
Okay, is there a second?
Yep, second.
And Jerry, second. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstentions or negative? Not hearing any. You got it, Foster.
Thank you very much. That was a good process. Thanks, you guys.
All right. Next, what do we got here?
I wanted to see, I saw Mary Paletti has a comment about solar rates. Do you guys want to open that up now for her to make a comment?
Sure.
I'm Mary Paletti. I live over in the Rosario area. Thank you, first of all, for all your good work behind the scenes and everywhere. We put solar panels on recently, and my question is very simple. I mean, we love them. We're very pleased with them. And we did them not because we'll be paid back in our lifetime, because we're older. We're in our 80s, closer to 90s than 80. But my question is this. When we signed up with Rain Shadow, a lot of people were signing up, and the rate that they said we'd get at the time was 12. Whatever the 12 is, 12 cents, 12, whatever it is. By the time they got to us and installed our panels, and the installation was very good, the rate they gave us was 8.5. So our neighbor gets the 12, we get the 8.5. And I wondered, first of all, what the variance of the range currently is, and why, if we signed up, and the only reason we couldn't get them on sooner is because of the demand and the commitment to the environment. why there is that, which might not seem a lot to you, but if you're living in a house, it adds up over the years. So that was my first question. And then my next question was, when they were out here, I wanted to put some more solar panels, 3 more on the roof. And they said, no, we shouldn't do that. This was enough. And I question it, but the Opelco brand is so excellent. We just took your suggestion. My other question was, I said, I'm very interested in a backup battery. And we were discouraged at the time. And I had asked about a backup battery some time ago when they put a new meter in, and we were very grateful for that. We now have fiber optic and solar panels, but my question is, since rates are going to go up, why the difference in what some people get because they got in earlier? Because quite frankly, there are probably a few exceptions, but wealthier people bought into the solar things earlier. And so we missed that boat. But in the long run, it makes a difference. So I'm wondering what the difference is, what the criteria is, and if other people are coming in at even lower buyback rates than we are. And then why, when we asked to be on the backup house panel, because we don't have a propane backup, why we were discouraged from that. And then the latest Opelco thing has the Tesla on the front and some of the others in the middle. So I'm confused. Do you want us to go ahead and get a backup panel, or shall we wait till they're bigger? And I know you can even get an EV from electric vehicle from Chevy that they will install a panel where you can charge your house, but then you have to recharge it. I just want some simple questions answered. Thanks.
You know, Mary, thank you very much. In fact, I love answering these kind of questions. First, let's go into the battery. I encourage you absolutely to put a battery in your home if you're concerned about like an energy blackout or a disruption of service if a tree goes in the line. So those are always welcome. And I think more and more members are going to be putting in batteries in their homes. We have a program called Switch It Up that allows what you do is you can put the battery in your home, and then the cost of that battery can be paid back to Opelco over a 10-year period on your electric bill. So we actually do encourage that. I'm kind of so anyway, looking forward to that. We could have conversations if you want to give Krista or Joe a call. We can kind of outline that stuff. The solar rate itself, remember this, when most people have solar and most of the solar that they use is for their own usage. Now that is still on the whatever we call it the retail rate. So whatever you're paying on retail rate, just remember all those kilowatt hours are going to be at the retail rate. So your system owned use, like right now, I would imagine you use a little, you generate more in the summer and a little bit less in the winter time. And so remember, anything that you generate that you use internally for your own home is going to be at the higher rate. We're only talking about the increment that flows back to the grid, if you're with me. And there's 2 cost components that go along with that. Remember, we're a cost of service organization where one member and one rate class, has to pay their fair share. And what we did was a cost analysis and determined that the people that were having solar arrays weren't paying a portion of their grid. And the grid is something that we all need to support, even if we don't use any, kilowatt hours. And so what we do in the solar rate is we have a grid charge that is appropriate, so everyone pays their portion of the grid collectively, like a co-op should. And then there's the cost of the power is a little bit separate. The amount of power that we could buy, a solar or off the Bonneville grid is lower than what would be generated from a particular member. So it's still a premium that you get a benefit from, but it's a little bit lower because we're trying to get aligned and making sure that some folks don't take advantage over the low income people. Like if I'll give you an example. If you had a person that put a lot of solar array, they're not paying their portion of the grid. And some of the low income people that can afford solar are basically having to pay more, if you will, for that grid. So it's really kind of aligning for our cost of service, protocols you would expect to see in a co-op. Does that answer your question?
Well, not quite, but I'm sure it's a lack on my part of understanding. I just want to know why my next door neighbor gets so much more and why my rate, when we were in line as fast as we could be. I mean, if there were more people installing the panels, obviously that would cost OPALCO more and we would have gotten their rate.
Yeah, what we did is we had people that were investing in solar and they were making their decisions earlier, and we call them the legacy rate. So I think the disparity you're seeing is
Okay.
before we went through that analysis, it was the legacy.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
sounds like you came after that. I apologize for that.
No. Okay. I just wondered how many variable rates there are going to be for solar panels, and if the rate has gone down for newer people as opposed to our rate.
Yeah, what they're going to do is they're going to become more in line with the cost of service. Just the neat thing that we see is more people are using solar for their own use. And remember, that's still at the retail rate. Everybody benefits from the higher rate. It's only that increment that flows back onto the grid. And most systems are not large enough to flow that much power back on the grid. They can a little bit more in the summer when the sun's out, but not so much when, for the rest of the year.
Okay.
Love your
Well, we
question.
love I'll go and see. We had some neighbors down the hill put one of those chargers on their house, and it was really expensive. I mean, it's probably more expensive than or as expensive as the solar panels.
Yeah, they're quite expensive to put an electric on there as a backup. But when there's a power outage, you don't even know it.
Yeah, well, that would be nice because right now we have a generator and we have to put the special gas in and everything like that. Anyway, I don't want to take up any more of your time, but at least I'm out there thinking.
Mary, thank you for participating. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.
So here's our second quarter financial report. We were having, this is really cute. I like the new guys in the bucket truck. It's kind of fun to see his picture. Anyway, everything's going really well when it comes to the 2025 financials for OPALCO. This is a really good summary table that lists the operating revenue, what we originally budgeted versus what's projected through actuals from prior months, so you kind of see where we are in terms of the year. We remember the ECA is that electric charge adjuster, and what that does is it goes on a month-to-month basis. If we want to make sure that the members receive money back if we're over collecting, and if we're under collecting, we see a surcharge or a credit. Usually, what happens when we bridge a year from like December through January, we kind of see a big true up because you're starting to see power rates being cold in December and they start migrating elsewhere. So every once in a while, we'll see a kind of a dramatic figure, and we saw one of those. But it's really just a rolling from a month to a month. You can also see a decrease in the power and the decrease in some of the expenses that we have that counterbalance the discount that goes along with really getting the dollars back in the hands of our members. The result is a margin when you take a net of the two basically we're positive. We're a little bit higher than we budgeted, which is always good. And our net margin is pretty aligned with what we had expected, a little bit more of a margin. For this time of the year, I think that's really a good situation to be in. We still have to go through the third and fourth quarters, so I think we're prepared to weather the storm, so to say, and navigate through the rest of the year. I think if you had to compare this year with others, I think it's a pretty darn good year. I'd replicate it all day long if we had a choice. Our tier numbers are looking really solid, like we expected. Our equity numbers, you want to see them rising. I'd like to see those things go up a little bit higher. That's what allows us to pay for the capital investments that we need to make in the future to keep our grid up and running. HDD days, the heating degree days, a little bit lower than we projected. But what we're seeing is, ever since the pandemic, people are spending more time in their local San Juan County homes, and the power usage is actually, you can kind of see in the next number, pretty consistent with what you would expect to see, even with a HDD that's a little bit lower. So we're doing pretty darn good. Any questions on the high level financials? With that, we got some good little graphs that we go through. Oh, here's the same information stated in a prior year, so you kind of compare year to year, but everything's going well. Same numbers. Let's go on some of the graphs. These kind of help. It gives you over time when you go through heating degree days, which is always important for us. These are the cold snaps, and if you getting really cold or really warm, that really has an impact on our financials. If you get really cold, you over collect, and that's where you get that ECA going back to the members. If you have a warm year, then we get a little deficient. We need to make sure that we true up our financials to make sure we cover all of our costs. And these trend lines really are interesting when they flip, which they do. The last time we had a really big flip was in 2014-15, and boy were those tough years for us. All is going well this time. Revenue tracking right online. As you can imagine, it's always nice to see these numbers right where we project. We're a slow-moving train, and I think that we know what our numbers are, and it shows that we're getting pretty good at estimating the revenue, as long as we don't have a weather event to surprise us. Keep going down. Here's some of the bigger variables that we track in terms of revenue and then power costs. If you I don't know if you can see that in that much detail, but you can track the bigger components of our budget, and that's really revenue, power costs, coming down to our margins and so forth. So pretty good year. Some other metrics and depreciation, interest expense have gone up just because interest rates have, and then we have to make sure that we collected them. So that's a little bit of an anomaly. I think that we anticipated it and put that in our projections at the beginning of last year or whatever, during the budget for last year. So that was good. Other financial metrics, so all is well on our debt front, our equity being raised up a little bit. Margins, again, you want to see those a little bit higher than what you budgeted. So we're doing extremely well for the second quarter. You see this is your income statement if you want to dive into some of the numbers. That higher level table really laid out everything that you need to see. But if you want to go into any of the detail, here it is. And I think we got some notable drivers coming up. You can see some of the anomalies if you look at the number of some of the rational thoughts on why. But again, not a lot of notes. Pretty typical for what we'd expect to see for these budget timeframes. Remember, you're also in the second quarter, so there's a lot of certainty of when you get in through the summer months. We're always collecting about the same amount of money. We're also doing the same thing on an expense side. It's really the first quarter and that last quarter that make up our numbers. So we're doing pretty good. We had a really good first quarter. I think we're good there. Get into some capital project stuff. So our balance sheet. We're doing extremely well. Where you expect to see, we do a lot more construction stuff, obviously, in the summertime, and we have the cash to pay for it. You can kind of see it in where that hand is located for the actuals. Another part of the balance sheet, which is all good. cash flow statement. Well, cash is king. Not a lot of co-ops really look at their cash flow. We do a really good job showing it up, making sure that we have the ability to navigate our operations, and our cash flow statement looks great. We actually budget something on the cash. We call it non-GAAP, so we can kind of track on what we were thinking back then translates to how well we did and what we were thinking back in the budget time frame. So it's nice to do a little high-level calculation estimation for cash flow. Doing really well. And capital projects. Russ, I usually pass this off on to you. I know that there's the capital projects that we have in total look really good. If anything, there's a couple of things that we haven't done in terms of the solar that translate. But if you want to go through any of the anomalies, that'd be helpful.
Just kind of going through the big items. There's some equipment procurement delays we're seeing in our switching equipment, for instance. Some of the substation equipment, you're not going to see that in this round of it, but some of the substation equipment has quite long lead times. The biggest one are the delays with the permitting with San Juan County, and the nightmares that are all things permitting, whether it's the county or some of the state regulations, or how we flow them down into our county regulations. So there's constant and extreme delays in all things to do with parcel, land use and SEPA permitting.
Yes, you're absolutely right there. Thank you for that. Let's keep going. We get into our Form 7. This is the same information that we're required to report to RUS. That's how we follow our cooperative model through RUS, which is a division of the Department of Agriculture. I love these are the same numbers that you've seen. They roll up a little bit differently based on the Department of Agriculture and RUS requirements. Pretty much the same numbers, but there's some great little stats in here. Just know that they're there. If you ever want to look at the number of services we have, they're located right there at the top of that graph, 1 through 4. Also, it has line miles. If you're kind of curious on how much distribution or underground or overhead we have, kind of see those numbers. Those are always great. And so we provide really a high level RUS Form 7 in our financials too. And then at year end, there's some really great detail too. So kind of pay attention to year end figures. And with that, I think we're done. Any questions about our financial position?
I'm good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Rolling. There's our dashboards. We're getting a lot of them. Our quick facts. We're getting a good library going with really important topics that members really like to ask us questions for. So what we usually do is if it's a social media post or a member inquiry, we can provide some detail and then more specific information linked below. So in our quick back. So it's been a really helpful process for both us explaining it as well as the members digesting, whether they want to do a high level, review discussion or a deep dive. So works out well. Again, kind of a recap, everything's going well financially. You see it on the engineering and operations and the number of projects we have going on this time of year. We're doing some good projects. The permitting stuff's hold us up a little bit, but then again, the money that goes along with that is usually turned out to our favor. Safety is going great. Our crew is extremely safe. We go through a lot of safety training on a monthly basis, and our hours report to it. We've got 69,000 hours now without a lost time accident.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the grants that we have, for the most part, the grant cycle is behind us. Here are some of the projects that are, what was awarded previously that we're tracking. So we're concluding our title project. That's a grant that we originally got, and kind of coming to the conclusion of that. Our DOE is what they're going to do is they're going to be looking at us and compare it to another title project, and and go through something they call a down select process. And we'll give you an update on that as we go. But right now, that's probably not going to occur until September, but we'll give you an update in the December board meeting materials. Some of the other smaller grant that we had, you kind of see it listed there, just a cybersecurity one, which is always nice for us. We take that extremely serious, both in Rock Island as well as Opalco. Grant awards that we've done for our...
Foster, can I interrupt for a second?
You bet.
On the down select process, do we have any feedback how the other project is looking in comparison to us?
We're going to discuss that in executive session.
Okay.
The answer is not really. You know, they're pretty close-lipped. But anyway, we'll get into that in more detail. We'll answer some of those kind of questions.
Okay.
And on the cybersecurity, where you said it's delayed, is that and you wrote federal delay, is that in a bucket that's kind of been canceled by the feds, or is that something we're still expecting to see at some point?
Russell.
They haven't canceled the funding. It's just waiting for selection, which could mean it could get canceled. But what we're seeing is there's just scrutiny going on with these projects and excessive scrutiny going on with these projects. So it tends to be with a delay. So
you know, to give you guys an update, just literally this morning reading, hot off the press, there's a whole restructuring going on that surprised me with RUS. RUS is the Rural Utility Services that's under the Department of Agriculture. It's a great program. It's how we really navigate our capital investments in the future that we always have to have in order to keep our grid up and running. And they're reorganizing it really dramatically. And it's kind of confusing out there about, how it's going to be structured. I know NRECA is heavily involved with DOE, making sure that our program that we rely on so much, RUS, is whole and it's understanding and what we need to have accomplished there. But I know it's getting cumbersome, to say the least, or at least trying to reorganize it. It's one of the only programs I know in the federal government, Wendy, that actually pays for itself. I mean, people that borrow the money pay it back. It's not just a handout. And so it's a great program. I know that NRECA is really out there trying to voice how important it is for our co-op world, and I hope that resonates pretty hard in the feds. Getting back into some of the awards that we have, pretty small until you get into kind of our larger broadband that we have through a partnership with Rock Island, getting last mile broadband out there. So that's going really well. Battery storage and some other, we're in permitting processes right now. I won't use derogatory terms, but we're navigating through those as well. Keep rolling. Finance, we went through the financials. This is a little bit different roll-up. So what we do in this roll-up is we look at, or the other one is really just a budget through second quarter. What we do is we project our financials through the end of the year. So slightly different. What we do is we use actuals until we don't have the actuals, then we use the budgetary numbers. So we kind of track where we're heading and don't have any surprises. Very consistent with what we just reviewed with second quarter financials. All is well. Pretty exciting there. Energy charge adjustment. Again, it's always good to have the dollars in the hands of the members. So really excited about having an ECA that doesn't over collect or under collect. And I think in the next rate structure where we tie it to the margin, it's going to allow us to make sure that we have the investments that or the dollars to make the investments that we require to keep our grid up. Heating degree days, kind of a neat chart. What we do is we look at our actuals are in the black color. If they trend the average line, which is between the El Nino, La Nina, El Nino is the red line, that would be hotter weather conditions. La Nina would be the bluer line. We always want to track in the middle. So we've been doing pretty well on that. I think that's a good way to look at it. If anything, maybe a scooch lower. And if it gets dramatically warmer, then that's where We just got to pay attention to what our economics look like and make adjustments accordingly. Weather forecast, you see there's still a lot of blue, which is the La Nina, which is a good thing from a revenue perspective. Keep rolling. The member services, this is our energy assistance funding. Very proud of these charts that we have. This is the program that we have used especially during our COVID period. So we give you a big historical tracking on how we help our members in need, both in terms of energy assistance and as well as PAL, and some other programs that are state funded as well. So keep going on energy savings. We also do a good job working with our members with rebates and Bonneville efficiency rebates that we've been getting for years. You can kind of track those. Are pretty excited about that. And then down below, we start getting into our interconnects and our Switch It Up program. We had a conversation about energy storage. Those are those batteries that we were talking about earlier. So we're using these programs for embracing some of these energy efficiency and conservation measures are really been a benefit to our membership. Right now, our funding, go down a little bit longer, you can kind of see we've borrowed relending funds. We can't use those internally for anything other than our members. So our members are able to put in energy efficiency members and measures and then pay it back over time. So we've borrowed $46.8 million. That's a lot of money. And right now we have about half of that available. So it's been really well embraced by the membership. Communication, it was fun to listen to Joe talk about the youth rally. Here's some cool little pictures that they had along the way. It's always one of the highlights of the year for the summer year. And then we actually, the kids come back around Christmas time and we get an update from them on what they learned and if they enjoyed the program or not. It's always fun to see our kids out and about. Joe also membered the energy community meetings that we have coming up for renewables. Save the dates, especially in your individual district territories. You know where you are. Please join us. Those are always good discussions. Rock Island subscribers were, it's been an interesting summer, right? We spent the first portion of the year from Rock Island perspective, trying to get as much middle mile out there as we could to get more people connected to the internet, and doing a great job. Now we're actually seeing the connections, which is really exciting. So we're actually doing the last mile connections. You start seeing the number of subscribers hitting all of our targets, and our revenue is starting to pop up above the line as well. So everything's going really well on the Rock Island front.
This is kind of stunning to look back on it. So in 2015, we purchased a outfit that was doing $200,000 a year, and now it's doing $1 million a month.
And I always tell everybody, they was like, well, what's the trick to the broadband? I said, well, you got to start.
Yeah.
Once you start, then I think that doors open for us. They certainly have. And with that, I think we need to go on executive session.
Why don't we do a break? It's 9:45. Let's break till 10, and then we'll reconvene. And so at this time, we'll close out the regular session.
Thank you, Vince.
You can stop the recording, and we'll see you back.